the Luka Doncic signing, the re-signing of Luka Doncic to an extension, because for the last few weeks, the NBA world has been kind of circling that August 2nd date. That is the date Luka was eligible to sign a contract extension with the Lakers. There were some questions swirling about would he or wouldn't he? Was he waiting to see what the Lakers were going to do? If there was going to be more upgrades, was going to wait a little bit longer to sign the extension? No, the answer is he wanted to sign the extension. He signed it the first day he was eligible for it. It was obviously a planned event. You had a whole bunch of Lakers that showed up there. They flew to Vegas right after that. He gets a 3-year, $165 million extension last year as a player option, which would free Luka to sign a 5-year, $417 million deal, which would basically get him back all the money he lost by going from Los Angeles to Dallas. So this feels like a pretty significant, milestone for the Lakers to get Luka Doncic under contract for at least the next 3 seasons. And based on, the obvious math, it's very likely that we see Luka as a member of the Lakers for the rest of his career. So what did you make of the quick signing by Luka Doncic?
Well, I liked a few things about it. First of all, the fact that it was so clearly choreographed and planned. I mean, they did go to that Backstreet Boys concert that night later with both owners, the transition from Jeannie Buss to Mark Walters and several of their teammates and JJ Redick. That stuff does not come together at a moment's notice. So clearly this was telegraphed quite some time before. And that tells you just how solid the relationship between the franchise and Luka is, which is pretty cool for a guy who clearly had some problems with his relationship with the last franchise. I liked the fact that, so many of the Lakers came out. I tweeted something saying, so much of the Lakers roster is here, and people took that as a shot at LeBron or Austin Reeves. It wasn't. It was the point that in the summer, it is very hard to get that many guys on a team there. It was unusual. And so seeing that was very interesting to me too, was just that so many of those other players made the point of being in town and at the facility. I thought that really spoke in a positive way to sort of where he is with his teammates and this team. One of the things I thought was interesting, Chris, though, was that, I don't know, in the actual photos of him actually signing the contract, there was a video board and it said the beginning in Slovenian. And that apparently, according to our friend Dan Wilkie, was put there by his management. So the fact that his idea of this is that it's the beginning of something, and he talked in the presser too about that, I thought was just an interesting peek into his mindset.
Yeah, it's huge for the Lakers to have the full commitment from Luka Doncic, to have him at least for the next 3 years, and more likely than not, the rest of his NBA career. It's enormous. Luka is going to enter next season as a top 5 MVP candidate. He's already proven he can take a team to the NBA Finals. This is huge for the Lakers. And I think it allows the Lakers to look at the rest of the board and to focus on everything else. And what I'm focused on with the Lakers, and we're going to get to LeBron and the short term in a minute, but what I'm focused on with the Lakers is what they can do in the summer of 2026. Having Luka locked in for the long term. Having cap flexibility, which for now, the contract of LeBron and Austin Reeves coming off the books. The Lakers, they'll have that flexibility. They'll also have the ability to trade first-round draft picks in 2026, 2031, and 2033. They'll also have the ability, if my research here is correct, to trade 3 first-round pick swaps. So 28, 30, and 32. So that's basically 6 first-round draft picks that they can deal, which coupled with financial flexibility, that makes them really dangerous. And look, there are the obvious players out there. There's Giannis for now anyway. There's someone like Jokic. Like, there's a lot of big names that could be, potentially available in the summer of 2026. Now, some people might say, well, the Lakers, there are still teams that could outbid them. There are still teams with better young talent. You have to remember, though, like, players have power in these situations. De'Aaron Fox, someone we're going to talk about later. Like, having 1 year left on his contract with Sacramento allowed him to dictate where he wanted to go, which was San Antonio. That was the only place he wanted to play at. So let's just say star X that is out there with a year or 2 years left on his contract. If that player says, look, I'm not going to sign an extension anywhere but the Los Angeles Lakers, well, that team then has to deal with the Lakers and effectively take what the Lakers are going to offer. So my big takeaway from seeing Luka sign is got to be a big relief for Rob Pelinka and the staff there to get that firm commitment. But also, here they come. Like the next summer is, I think, the most significant summer in recent franchise history. I don't want to go how far back I want to go because you got the Kobe deal, but like you got a lot of things in play in the summer of 2026.
Yeah. I mean, the summer they signed LeBron, I think was a pretty big deal as well for them. But you look at their cap going forward, and the only player signed for the 2028 season is Luka Doncic. Now, I expect, as you noted, Austin Reeves, he's probably going to sign an extension, but it won't be for the kind of amount that would prevent another big player from coming there. So it is just really so wide open for them. And that is a little bit the LeBron situation, which I know we're transitioning to, is just the issue with LeBron from the Lakers side is wanting to keep those books clean in case a Giannis is available, in case a Jokic is available, as opposed to having two players on max 50 million plus 60 million plus salaries that they can't then go out and get Luka's co-star for the next 5 years because they've got LeBron James on their books for one more year if they extend him.
Yeah, and just to correct myself there, you're right. Austin Reeves has 1 year left in his contract after this season. It's Rui Hachimura that comes off the books. His $18 million salary comes off the books. Gabe Vincent's salary comes off the books. Maxi Kleber's contract comes off the books. So they have a lot of financial flexibility next summer. And obviously LeBron, the $50 million salary comes off the books as well. So long-term, things are looking really good. Mm-hmm. Short-term, the Lakers still have to figure out what this year is going to look like and how aggressive they're going to be to try to procure talent, not just over the next month, 2 months, but also into the February trade deadline. LeBron James was not at the press conference.
Right.
Okay. I don't want to make a mountain out of a molehill here. Bronny James wasn't there either. Mm-hmm. But LeBron was in Los Angeles by his own Instagram feed. Like he was working out in the greater Los Angeles area. So he was around. I don't know exactly where Bronny James was, but there were a lot of players at that presser. Not everybody, but a lot of players. Look at the pictures. The full dais. A lot of guys. DeAndre Ayton hadn't played a minute there. He was there. Marcus Smart hasn't played a minute there. He was there. I'll put the question to you. I'll throw this hand grenade at you. LeBron not being there. Big deal, kind of a big deal, nothing burger. Where do you put it on the LeBron drama scale?
Well, look, I don't know technically where LeBron was at 10:32 that morning. He had posted the pictures of him working out from the Clippers' old facility, which was not an accident. He also then, at some point over the weekend, left for a vacation in Hawaii. Do I know at what point any of that happened? There's been a ton of reporting, especially from our friend Mark Stein, on the fact that LeBron did FaceTime Luka that morning to say congratulations. I think that LeBron's problem in not showing up at the presser, if that was indeed he was in town and that was a decision he made, has a lot more to do with the Lakers organization than it does with Luka. We have seen LeBron show up for these press conferences, by the way. So it's not as if, he's too above it. He showed up for ADs. He showed up for JJ Redick's, I believe. So this is something he does. And the fact that he wasn't there, that's kind of why it's more notable, because he's done it in the past. But I think it has more to do with his frustration with the Lakers. He believes he's played at a level where he deserves an extension. He shouldn't be an expiring contract. And two things can be true. He has played at that level. However, also, would be 42 years old if the Lakers signed him to an extension. They don't know what kind of shape or sort of, and I don't mean physical shape, I mean basketball shape he's going to be in at that point. And the truth is, as we just discussed, if one of these other big players come available, and by the way, someone always does. We didn't expect Luka Doncic to be available, and there he was. So there is always someone at some point in this process who you sort of raise your eyebrows, wow, that big star is going to change teams. And they don't want to be tied up with 42-year-old LeBron when they could get, say, a Giannis or Jokic or someone else. And I'm not trading Jokic off the Nuggets, by the way. I hope he stays there for the rest of his career. But I'm just saying that there's always someone who pops available. And two things can be true. LeBron probably does deserve an extension. And it's true that the Lakers kind of can't afford to give him one if they want to keep their cap open enough to sign a younger co-star for Luka going forward into the next 5 years. And it's created a really uncomfortable situation.
Yeah, the Lakers' advantage in a deal in the summer of 2026 is that they do have potentially really valuable draft capital to trade. And because of some of that flexibility, maybe they don't have to give back a bad contract in a deal. A team that might be trading a star that makes a ton of money. More often than not, you have to take back at least one bad contract. The Lakers, because of that flexibility, maybe they wouldn't have to. They certainly don't have like this depth of young talent to deal. That's not the Lakers' strength on their roster right now. So you do. I agree with you. You want to keep that flexibility. As far as LeBron not showing up, look, there have been, as we've talked about, a lot of questions about his commitment to the franchise. Not to his teammates, not to Luka Doncic, but his commitment to the franchise. He could have answered those questions by showing up. He could have. Yeah. If he walks into that facility and is right there with the rest of those teammates, not to take questions, but that would have sent a pretty powerful message that he was all in with his team for next season.
That's not a message he wants to send right now.
Agreed.
That's obvious over the summer that, in fact, he wants to send the opposite message. Let me show a photo of my workout in Cleveland. Let me show a photo of my workout at the Clippers facility. All of the other sort of baiting things that he's done. Even the photo shared of him overseas in Europe with Maverick Carter was a little bit of a, tweak of, we're Maverick's starting this other basketball league, and maybe I'll do that at some point. So he is making it clear that he is not simpatico with the organization. And that is because he feels that they're putting one of the best players who has ever played the game of basketball on an expiring contract. And that is not something that he feels, befits who he is and how he has played in recent years. And again, two things can be true. He is right that he isn't getting what he, quote, deserves with what he is kind of basketball he has put out in the last couple of seasons. And also the Lakers are right. They can't really afford to give him the kind of deal that he would want for the amount of money that he would want, because they need to keep that money for that flexibility you're talking about and to get a co-star for Luka who can be there for 5 or 6 years, not just one more year.
What do you think of Bronny not being there? I mean, he's got 3 years left on his contract, and this is someone that, if you believe the Lakers, is going to play a role on this team next year. And I don't know where he was. Maybe he was in LA, maybe he wasn't, but I thought him not being there was almost as notable.
I did too, actually. And in fact, I think that was the one that raised a little more eyebrows for me. And look, Bronny's young enough still, and everything's complicated. And I can't even imagine the family dynamic of your dad is clearly at some sort of odds with the organization. And do you go or do you not go? Is there a loyalty check here? So I don't blame him, because it's a very complex situation. But I thought he was maybe a little bit of the collateral damage in this, just in the fact that, he probably should have been there. And then he wasn't. And maybe that was his decision. Maybe it was because it was so complicated. Maybe he left on vacation with LeBron. Maybe they left earlier than we think. I don't know. But that was the one actually that raised a little bit more eyebrows for me than LeBron not being there, because LeBron has messaged and signaled all summer that he is not all in with the Lakers, not his teammates, not on the court, but just with the franchise and the way they're running things right now. And I just think that Bronny's in a different situation. Austin Reeves, by the way, there are a couple of people asking questions about him. He's on a sneaker tour in Asia. So he was not going to jet back for this press conference. No word on if Austin Reeves FaceTime Luka Doncic. I mean, this is also parsed now, but yeah, I mean, I think the fact that we saw that in person as opposed to just social media, that's what's notable about the LeBron thing. It's not, oh my God, I can't believe my fainting couch, he didn't show up. It was more just, okay, this is now extending in person, not just social media tweaks. And we'll just have to see how that plays out over the course of the season, because I've told you many times, LeBron James, I absolutely positively believe will be with the Lakers on opening night. I just don't see that changing. But as the trade deadline approaches, is he going to decide somebody else is going to offer him an extension while the Lakers aren't? I don't know. So we'll see what happens and what that dynamic is over the months leading up to February.
Yeah, and look, I don't think that Luka Doncic was clocking exactly who was at his press conference. I don't think he was scribbling down who was not in Vegas taking pictures with Nick Carter with him.
Yeah.
But I do think it was notable that a guy who is a role player on this team, who is under contract for the next 3 years, who is presumably going to be part of the Lakers when it is fully Luka Doncic's team, who lives in Los Angeles, whose family is in Los Angeles, wasn't at that press conference. I think it's definitely notable.